Our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., has a rich history and lots to offer. But we weren't sure if our kids were the right ages yet for this trip. Would they absorb the activities and have fun? Or would it be dull? And is this right for your kids? Here are the 7 top things we did.
Best. Washington, D.C. is the best.
Where are we headed?
We're going on a road trip.
Road trip. We are headed to Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, for our spring break. We actually were planning to go to Washington last Thanksgiving, when at the very last minute we made an about face and ended up going on the Disney Wish for Thanksgiving. And we pushed our Washington, D.C. trip to this time instead, which actually makes a lot more sense because the weather is supposed to be beautiful this week and it would have been a lot colder.
Welcome to Delaware.
Why'd we pick Washington?
This is one of those cities that has a lot to offer, especially a lot of history, which we love. Here we can do a lot of that for a very small budget.
Yes. So we're driving instead of flying. That's much more cost effective. Also, like 85% of all the things that you can do in Washington, D.C. are free, between the Smithsonian's, the monuments, the memorials.
I've had folks ask us recently, friends and family, who are like, you guys travel a lot. And I know YouTube makes it seem that way. We travel whenever the kids have breaks from school. It's not like we are full-time.
No.
We're vacationers.
Yeah.
You can't go on a big, expensive luxury trip every time you get a break from school. Sometimes you need to find ways to travel on a budget, and that's some of what this trip is.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what a 4-day itinerary in DC holds.
5.
We drove into town but parked our car in a garage and opted to walk to most of these stops from our hotel near the Capitol building. Our first night fell on a holiday, Emancipation Day. So some of the museums had reduced hours, which sent us to the National Portrait Gallery, a Smithsonian institution. That means admission was free. So I have to admit, when we talked about coming to Washington, D.C. with kids, I worried that they would find it boring and you have to wait until your kids are old enough to be ready for it. And are they ready for it yet? And I think now our kids are right on the cusp of being the right age. So we got an almost 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 10-year-old. Our 10-year-old does sometimes have some struggles with impulse control. We're going to have to make sure that the activities are interesting enough to hold everyone's attention. And we did our best. Nick did a great job crafting this itinerary for the kids, but we ended up pivoting and going to the National Portrait Gallery, which I was excited about, but admittedly is one of the maybe more boring museums you could choose here. There aren't a lot of interactive, kid-friendly things there. It's a lot of reading history and looking at art. And we did give the kids challenges. Go read all of their descriptions and find someone who was born in New York, or go find this collection of people in this portrait. Which one's the oldest? Or we would try to tell the stories of some of the more interesting figures that were shown. But yeah, they weren't super excited. And admittedly, we were cooped up in a car for almost 4 hours on the way here today. So we're going to go more kid-friendly. Some of my fears were starting to be realized. Tomorrow's a new day. For destinations a bit further away, we opted to take an Uber. Be sure to point out things as you drive, because on our way to Georgetown, we passed places like the Pentagon and Arlington National Cemetery, which our kids wouldn't otherwise have had a chance to see. We added some food stops to our tour this day, giving us a literal taste of Georgetown, and you can see the video link here for all the details.
For tales of the past, while the present dances with sophistication. What do you think of that?
As Nick read the stops on the walking tour, which you can find linked below in the description, we wandered by historic homes and artisan shops.
Welcome to the Dumbarton Oaks Gardens. If you are to begin your walking tour here at the Dumbarton Oaks, the gardens don't open until 2 p.m. So if you enter around the other side, there's the library entrance.
But the gardens at Tudor Place were open for us. This is called Tudor Place, but it's the same designer as the Capitol building.
Oh. What Capitol does it look like to you? To me it looks like a W.
You
See
think,
this? Yes.
you think it looks like a capital W?
Yeah.
I get that.
So even if you're not interested in touring the house, which apparently has a lot of artifacts from George and Martha Washington, you can access the gardens really easily. And something really cool about the gardens, considering you're not too far from Wisconsin Street, is that you can actually have a picnic in the gardens here. So you could conceivably go get some food and bring it here and have your picnic here.
Nori gave me a magnolia leaf for my hair.
I saw you in my car. I'm off the bench.
Even places like this, you remember some of the history,
Ready for level 1? Yeah.
some of the pain that it holds. I'll be honest, we haven't even been here a full day, and mostly looking at historic buildings and the historic portraits in the gallery yesterday, and it's been really good for my heart. In a time when our country has been really divided and really tumultuous the last few years, if not more, to see the history of how hard people have worked to build America, and how there's messiness and there are poor mistakes that were made in our past, but also really, really good people trying to make it better. It gives me a lot of hope, and I'm very proud of the history that this place holds. I thought it might be stressful to come here, but it's been really good.
So we are here in the Made in DC shop, which is right across the street from Marvin's Tavern, which is part of the walking tour. I will say there's coffee, which is awesome. There's little treats that work for us. All the style and design stuff is really cool. They have bagged flower blends from Sweet Crimes, which is where we are headed tomorrow for breakfast. So come here and get some flower mix. Is there a golden ticket in it?
We stopped by the stately Georgetown University, but didn't join a campus tour. Our walking tour also passed JFK's former church, the famed Georgetown cupcakes, not gluten-free, and the exorcist steps used in the film. One final stroll took us along the waterfront to the Kennedy Center. We spent about 5 hours in Georgetown, including the stops for breakfast and lunch. It was a gorgeous sunny day, and the kids loved roaming around. Then we went to a museum that kids totally approved of, the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. we reserved a tour time at the U.S. Capitol building 90 days in advance. This is a guided tour with headsets. U.S. Capitol Police Junior Officer.
Yes.
One of our favorite features of this space was the large statues representing important historical figures from each state.
I'm actually surprised by the number of people who came here and went through the whole security process without reservations. Especially considering that it's spring break week, but the line for tours without reservations was actually pretty long.
And a lot of the people in line for the pre-reserved tours are travel groups, student groups. So they'll be in our tour with us.
So they did recommend that we arrive 45 minutes early, which feels like the right amount of time. So, you know, it does take a little bit of time to get through security and to confirm your tour time, go to the bathroom, and then get in line.
Woven into the great seal of the United States is a phrase, a motto, a rallying cry. E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. Out of many states, cities, neighborhoods, out of such different perspectives, such distinct personalities, so many free and fiercely independent people emerges one country, one nation.
I would totally revisit in the future to try some of the specifically themed tours. The gift shop was also great. I picked up some pins and a t-shirt. Remember to vote, guys.
My favorite bit about the tour was the big pictures. My favorite picture of them all was the one where Pocahontas was getting baptized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baptized.
See that 4-year-old right there? It was probably a little much for him. If you only have one kid and you only have a kid who's like 4 or like just about to be 5, it was probably a little too much just information and moving and listening for them, and he got a little wiggly.
Nora had a hard time seeing some of the statues she wanted to see, so some of the stuff you want to see if you're little might be too little to see without a grown-up picking you up or working your way to the front. Might have to be a little aggressive. Hey friends. Our afternoon got really derailed. We took really took the wind out of our sails. We went to lunch, and this afternoon we were planning on going to the African American Museum, and we thought it was really important to put that into our itinerary to try to teach our kids about some of the history. It is everything in American history is complicated and messy, and our kids have already, when we went to Pearl Harbor in February, they struggled through some of understanding about war and the ways that people hurt each other and the ways that people don't see the humanity in each other. And we are trying to teach them how to love their neighbors and how to undo past wrongs. And so part of this trip was very intentional to do that. While we were at lunch, there was an altercation that took place in the restaurant. A woman came in and started yelling at another woman. I'm not sure what happened on the street before they came in, but she was very angry, and I could tell she felt very disrespected and hurt. But the yelling there was a lot of swearing, and we just worried that there was going to be some violence that was not that far from us. And at some point, someone tried to intervene, and she started yelling at him, and then she spotted my kids crying and started yelling at my kids. Finally, the restaurant did escort the woman out, but my kids were very, very upset. And I'm sure that there's something going on, some story there that goes way further back, but also there's just tension between people because of history. And so my kids didn't expect to have someone yell at them and use 4-letter words on a day when we're trying to be really intentional to undo some of the racism that lies at the heart of so many of the chapters that this country has had to deal with. We're so grateful to be in a community that addresses a lot of this head on and strives for celebrating diversity and celebrating cultures. So my kids, to some degree, don't even understand why you would disrespect Black culture and African culture. Tonight we're going to go to an Ethiopian restaurant to celebrate African culture. But we tried to weave a thread through this trip that was going to celebrate African American contributions to this country. And today was hard because as we left the restaurant, the kids were so upset. They just kept crying and saying, can we please just go back to the hotel? It was clear we all needed to just decompress. And I do want to shout out to the restaurant. I don't blame the restaurant at all. I want to thank them for taking care of us. But that was maybe the quietest car ride I've ever been in with my kids. Like, not a peep out of a single one of us. Everyone was really kind of shell-shocked. We didn't really finish our lunch. Nobody wanted to eat after that. We came back to the hotel and our room wasn't even ready. It was being cleaned up for the day, so we hung out in the shared lounge space. I even showed Asher how to lay on the bed and put his feet up against the wall and try to lower his stress levels. The kids just watched TV. So here we are, traveling all the way to another place to watch TV. But that's not what we came here to do. We came here to learn. We've already started talking about other museums and other places we can go, other learning experiences we can do in New York when we're back home, because we have a lot of learning to do. And we're not going to disengage from this discussion, from discussions about race, discussions about love, and how we can make our country better. You feeling better?
Yeah.
Good. You'll want to block out at least 2 hours or more to see all of the major monuments along the mall and beyond. We were there Easter weekend, so there was some event setup taking place. Well, thanks to the Easter egg roll, it's not an egg hunt, it's an egg roll, we have an obstructed view this weekend. So many porta potties.
The ubiquitous Kilroy was here is also present. Kilroy was here is a meme that became popular during World War II.
Yeah, it's up. Yeah, it's there.
So we specifically picked this time of day to do this walking tour because it afforded us the opportunity to do the first couple of stops in the sun, World War I Memorial, the Washington Monument, the World War II Memorial, and then we're coming up to the Lincoln Memorial just as the sun is setting. So you get the glow of the sunset right behind it, as well as seeing the lights coming on in the Lincoln Memorial. And then the FDR Memorial and the MLK Memorial are gorgeous at night. They're really beautiful. So timing it just right post-dinner is the way to go.
And for this tour, we are using the GPSMyCity walking tour. We've used it before, but we're going to put the link down below so you can find it. Runners keep going by, and I just think this would be such an amazing run. We finally finished the walking tour. We did not make it all the way to the Jefferson Memorial. That is just too far. But we made it as far as the FDR Memorial. 1 out of 3 kids made it. 2 of them fell asleep in the stroller. Honestly, Asher would have fallen asleep in a stroller if we had one that would fit him. But I found it very interesting that our favorite memorial last time was FDR, right here behind me. And this time it was weird. Last time we came at night, and it was really beautifully lit and kind of told a story that made it glow at night. And this time it was like half the lights were turned off and a bunch of them were maybe on their last legs. They were flickering, and Ash thought it was almost like a horror movie. But very few of the lights were working, and it was very dark. And as we went further and further into the memorial, we thought, this is probably not a great place to be. It's not well populated. And I think some of that is because it's not well lit. You can't really get a whole lot from it, which is a bummer because the design of it is stunning. So as much as our advice was to go at night, I think I would say to go during the day, unless you hear that they have fixed all the lighting. That's a bummer. It's a really cool experience when the lights are all working. We had invited the kids to help us trip plan, and they chose one museum for our itinerary, the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. We tried on pieces of an astronaut spacesuit and learned all about the history of flight. There's a lot closed for renovation.
There is a fair amount here that is closed for renovation, but since you don't pay for it, it's not a huge deal.
As we raise a family of little aviation geeks, we found all the vintage airline branding really fun. I love how just as we walked in, one of the docents came up and greeted us and helped direct us on where we wanted to go. She told us all of the air stuff is on this level, and we go up a level for the space attractions. There's some Star Wars stuff. And worth noting, the bathrooms are pristine. There's nursing mother's room. There is a family room and sensory space downstairs. So much for families here. Really impressed. Then we made our way to space. The merch game here was on point, and Nora got her trip souvenir at the gift shop. Welcome to the family, NASA Bear. On our final day before the drive home, we went to the Smithsonian National Zoo. There was quite a line for the reptile house, and I was glad for the excuse to skip it. So we made our way to the ape house instead. I found these vintage beverage trucks so cute. The kids asked for a couple of extra fun experiences. For Asher, we rode on a VR safari. It was pretty cool. While Axon rode on the animal carousel. Nora would have too if she hadn't already fallen asleep in the stroller. They keep playing Disney songs, so I feel right at home. Now remember, this is a Smithsonian location, and so admission is free. However, parking is $30. I did see some people showing up in Ubers and taxis, and that might be a way to save a few dollars. Or to park in the neighborhood if you can find something and walk. But parking for $30 is not bad to get our family of 5 into a zoo. And we were here from about 1:30 to 4 and saw a handful of animals, did a few attractions. It wasn't the most animal heavy day for a zoo experience. I'm surprised there weren't more animals out and about. Then again, if you go first thing in the morning, they may be more awake and alert and out and about.
We're about to leave Washington, D.C. What was the best part?
The walking tour.
The walking tour of the monuments and memorials?
No.
The walking tour of Georgetown, the city? That's cool. I'm glad you liked it so much. What was the best part of that walking tour?
How much secret paths there were.
That's cool.
Like you see one secret path and then you go in and then there's like 10 more secret paths.
Oh, you mean over at the Tudor place?
Huh?
At that house?
Yeah.
That's cool. That was the best part of that walking tour,
Yeah.
I thought.
We're headed back home, guys.
Let's do a debrief. So I feel like we have two main themes that are important takeaways. I would not say that this was a sunshine, rainbows, everything worked out perfectly trip.
No. I want you to know that you can come here and find information about destinations and know that every trip's not going to be perfect. Every trip's not going to be easy. I mean, heck, we've got 3 kids in tow, and having 3 kids everywhere you go is simply not easy. So I want you to feel some sense of like familiarity, because we get it, guys.
And reality.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to hide it from you.
Right. Now, which is not to say that this was a bad trip, disastrous trip, or that we're even saying, oh, you shouldn't come. Not that at all.
No.
It's just there were a couple of things that maybe some of them were predictable, but that were what we would call hiccups and just things to be aware of. Our kids were not altogether as interested in museums as we would have wanted them to be. Now, you might say, well, that's predictable. But what's odd is that we have done other trips where museums and historical experiences have been the focus. Boston, Philadelphia, even Paris to some extent.
And you can watch all those
You can watch
videos.
all those. But they have been adaptable to historical experiences before and have walked away really like remembering them and having them as being kind of quintessential experiences. And I wouldn't say that that was our experience here. They were kind of done with the museum experiences pretty early on. This was a 5-day trip.
Most of the other families we saw touring had middle schoolers to teenagers, high schoolers. It was not a lot of kids, even our 10-year-olds age. I take it back now. We could have waited a few more years.
Yeah.
But I also need to emotionally prepare them for, here's what the schedule is. When we went to Hawaii, I prepared them for Pearl Harbor with YouTube videos, and I feel like I could have done better preparing for this.
The second element, multiple things, just had something that just felt a little bit off.
Yeah.
Right? Whether that be the experience we had at Ben's Chili Bowl, which was really intense.
To some degree, it tarnished pretty much all of the trip.
Yep. 2, when we went on our Monument and Memorial tour, which I think was probably my favorite part of the trip, I was really kind of disappointed about the FDR Memorial, which was basically like someone unplugged all of the lights.
Yeah, it felt like it wasn't even really operational, but then we still got in, which at that point kind of felt unsafe.
Yeah. The Air and Space Museum, awesome staff. The exhibits that were there were really great. I really liked the Wright Brothers exhibit, but about half of the museum was closed for renovation.
Yeah. It'll be wide open by this summer, but it was like half the museum was closed. That said, I want to specify every single staff member we saw at any Smithsonian location was stellar. From the zoo to Air and Space to, what was the other? Oh, even at the Portrait Gallery. Like, great.
One thing that we were nervous about going into this trip that turned out not to be a problem is, obviously, there's a lot of political division in the country right now.
I thought you would feel the partisan tension like in the air.
Yes. And honestly, I didn't feel any of that. I kind of walked away from it kind of being like, oh, there's a lot of people all looking to do the best thing that they possibly can, and feels like we're all in this together.
Yeah. There seemed to be some just appreciation for shared history and doing our best.
Yeah.
And a lot of international tourists. I figured being American spring break, it would all be American tourists, but there were a lot of international tourists, and it kind of felt like, wow, people come here to see how we do this democracy thing because it's honestly revolutionary. Guys, sometimes your trips have hiccups and you do your best to shake them off. And sometimes you go home and go, I had some good memories there. I had some favorite parts. I really enjoyed part of that. There still were things that kind of got me down every day. I kept trying to be like, let's redeem the trip. And it didn't quite get there. But I am not going to say this is reason to throw out traveling around and seeing the world. And now I'm just going to go sit on a resort somewhere where, a team can wait on me hand and foot on an enclosed, piece of property. I want to keep seeing the world. I want my kids to keep seeing the world. So you'll see us go on cruises and go to Disney and go to some of these kind of prefab locations. I love those trips. Those can have bad days too. And at the end of the day, I want them to see more people and places that make this world so incredible. So, where do we want to go next? Let's go see it all. Thanks for watching, guys. Let us know anything we missed, and please subscribe. We'll see you next time, travelers.